All right. Good morning and welcome, everyone. Happy first day of fall. My name is Sydney Shuttro, and I am a member of the Tennessee Fall Prevention Coalition. On behalf of all the coalition members across the state, welcome to this session of the Tennessee Fall Prevention Coalition's Fall Prevention Awareness Week virtual series. Governor Lee made a formal proclamation recognizing this week as Fall Prevention Awareness Week in Tennessee, and we're also celebrating across the country through the work of the National Council on Aging. Fun fact for today, September 22nd every year is up to the data collection survey, volunteered to speak during the series, and strive every day to educate, promote, and provide programs across Tennessee to help reduce the occurrence of falls in older adults. Thank you all. For the audience, this session is being recorded, so I'm placed you all on mute, or I will if we have some background noise. I've also turned everyone's camera off except for Dr. Melhorn, so we can all see her and focus on her. She's going to be doing some demonstrations instead of a PowerPoint, so I want to make sure she's very spotlighted. If you have any questions or comments to share, we encourage you to do so in the chat box feature, and we'll address questions throughout and at the end of the presentation. So we do have a wonderful presentation for you today that will discuss and demonstrate adaptive equipment options. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Dr. Erin Melhorn so she can tell you about herself and lead us in this discussion. So thank you so much, Erin, for being with us today.
All right, and thank you so much for having me. My name's Erin Melhorn, and I am an occupational therapist. For the past 15 years of my career, I've worked all over the country working as an occupational therapist. Most recently, my clinical practice has been in home health. And so I spend a lot of time in people's homes talking to them about fall prevention. My full-time job is I'm a assistant professor of occupational therapy at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. So I'm coming to you this morning from our Activities of Daily Living lab. And so it's a big classroom that's set up like a home environment. And so I'm going to show you some equipment that you can use to improve the safety of your home and reduce fall risk. I will say, not everyone is going to need all of this equipment, but if you can come away with one or two things that you can use or recommend to a friend, then I'll consider it a success. I want to let you know I'm going to be rolling you around the classroom a little bit. And so if at any point you can't see what I'm doing, just say, hey, Erin, or drop a chat and I can adjust my camera. But I'm going to be rolling you around a little bit so you can take a tour of our awesome space and I can show you the equipment in context. I'm also going to be stooping and squatting, and that's how I teach. It's the easiest way for me to show you. So when we think about adaptive equipment, everyone thinks of the obvious things. So I have with me today a quad cane. So we call it a quad cane because it has 4 points on the bottom. And this is a common device that you will see people using if they have sort of mobility deficits or balance deficits. And so one thing I want to talk to you about today is just making sure your quad cane is adjusted properly. They adjust very easily either by twisting. And how do you know if it's the right height? Well, obviously, I hope that whoever gave it to you or recommended it to you sort of gave you some guidelines, but in short, an easy thing to remember is you want about a 20 to 30 degree bend in your elbow, right? So I don't want my elbow straight. I don't want it super bent. I want it sort of in between. So this cane's actually a little tall for me, and I would make it shorter so I could get that optimal bend. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is a rolling walker. And later I'm going to show you how we use these things in the home to reduce falls, but I wanted to just introduce them. This is a rolling walker. You've all seen this. It's nothing new. If you get a new hip or a new knee, if you have any kind of surgery or mobility deficit, then this is going to be probably one of the first things that you get. These are great. They fold up. Everyone thinks these are brakes, but they're actually to help it fold. And then it has 2 wheels on the bottom. So 2 wheels down here and then flat on the back. One thing that I normally recommend that my clients do is either put a tennis ball on this to protect their floors, Or they make these little things called skis that are hard plastic that help it glide a little better. Otherwise, you're kind of walking and it's going, you know, you don't want to tear up your floors or anyone else's. But the same sort of recommendations for this. So 20 to 30 degree bend in the elbow. So that's about this. If you're finding yourself doing this number and having to do this, then you want to either adjust your walker or adjust your posture. Posture is probably the number one. I tell my patients to stick your bottom in and your chest out and stand upright. This is a frame that we use to help us walk. It isn't to bear down on while we're walking, right? So just a little tip. This is the Cadillac, right? The Corvette. It drives fast. Got 4 wheels. So if you don't have good balance, this might not be the best option for you because it's going to take off running whether you're ready or not. These are for people, can't see it very well, can you? These are like in every assisted living around town. But so this is for people who have pretty good balance and just need a little bit of steadying assistance. Or maybe you've got some breathing or heart problems that make you fatigue really quickly, and you need to make sure you have a seat at all times. And so this is a rollator walker, and you can use it to help you get around. The next thing I'm going to do is take you into the kitchen. I'm not sure about you, but no matter what's going on in my life, I need to be able to access the refrigerator and the kitchen. So we're going to go in there and talk about how you use this equipment in the kitchen and also some tips for reducing falls in the kitchen. All right. So normally, if I don't have any adaptive equipment, I just approach the fridge from the front, right? I approach it from the front. I get what I need, no problem. If I'm using a walker and I try that same strategy, what happens? Well, I'm having to back up. I'm having to move forward. There's a lot of adjusting going on. So what we recommend is you approach the doors from an angle, that way you can pull it out. And then I recommend you keep anything you access regularly, either in the doors or on the top shelves of your fridge. So I tell people to keep it between the shoulders and the knees, right? We won't want to be reaching up high. We don't want to be squatting down low. We want to keep things where we can access them really easily. I'm going to park the walker for a minute because so I can drive my cart. And we're going to come in here to the kitchen. We have this great setup here at UTC, and so I teach my students a lot of adaptive kitchen techniques. But today I'm just going to show you a simple piece of equipment, and it's not really equipment, it's just sort of a tool of the trade. If you have a microwave and it's like this, then sometimes it can be hard for people to see the buttons or differentiate between 1 and 2 and popcorn. And so one thing I recommend doing is getting something high contrast. So I have some yellow tape on the most commonly used buttons. So 1 minute, start and stop. I like to get something with a little bit of a tactile, so something that raises up. And I'm pretty cheap, right? I don't like to spend a lot of money. So I get little stickers from the dollar store or from Hobby Lobby, like a star and a heart. And I like to put those over the buttons. And that gives me something to feel so that I know I'm pushing the right button. Just a side note, I taught my daughters how to use a microwave this way. So they know to like press the star twice and then the heart. You know, it gives them something other than having to read all of the buttons. I also like for your microwaves to be sort of this same position, right? Between the shoulders and the knees. If your microwave is above your oven, it's going to be hard for you to lift something without placing yourself at an increased risk for falls. All right. My least favorite chore to do around the house is the dishes, but it's a necessary evil. And if you have balance deficits, doing the dishes can be kind of dangerous. So one thing that we recommend is if you have a dishwasher, just use the top shelf. See how I can take my plates, put it in here, and I'm not bending or squatting too much. So just a simple trick. Something I also use a lot of in the kitchen is shelf liner, right? I got this at the Dollar Tree where it used to be $1, but now it's $1.25. And this is good to sort of put on your walker seat, or if you have a tray on your regular walker, just to keep things from sliding around. The next place I'm going to take you is to our bathroom. So we're going to roll a little. While we're rolling, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. All right, let me show you our classrooms because we have such a beautiful building. I love to show it off, right? This is where the occupational therapy students learn. All right. And now I have the bathroom. All right, this is the stuff nobody likes to talk about. It's not like common dinner conversation like, well, I got stuck on the toilet again yesterday. What about you? You know, no one wants to talk about the bathroom, but we all go. We all need our bathrooms to be safe.
Have limited time
Okay,
to go.
we need them to be safe and accessible for anyone and everyone. So I'm going to show you some different equipment. This is a bedside commode. I bet most of you have seen one of these. There's some advantages to the bedside commode. It's height adjustable. If you're 6'5", I can adjust it that high. If you're 4'9", I can make it lower. So the bedside commode is very versatile. You can use it, like the name says, on your bedside. You can put this beside your bed, and if you have a hard time getting up at night, or if you're getting up at night a lot, this can be a really good option, right? Is it the coolest option? No, but if it keeps you from falling and keeps you safe and independent in your home, it's certainly worth considering. So this is the bedside commode. I like it because it has armrest. So if you're having a hard time lowering yourself down, the armrests give you that element of control instead of just flopping down. All right. This is another device that you can put on the commode, and it's just a toilet seat riser. I'll show you how simple it is to put on. Just a side note, you have to know when you're buying these if your toilet is round or oblong. I wonder how many, it's not something I knew off the top of my head, but they're either round or oblong. So you got to know that. But this is a toilet seat riser, and it just goes over the commode. And you screw this on right here until it tightens. And what this does is it makes your commode about 2.5 to 3 inches taller. So this might be helpful if you've got a bad knee and it hurts to sit down that far, or if you've got weakness in your hips and it's really hard to get up, or you've got a combination of a lot of things and you just need a little taller commode so that you can safely go to the bathroom. What we don't want is people falling quickly, like getting really close and then dropping, right? It knocks your commode off of the ring a little bit. But it has armrest. So if I'm using this, I can just grab the armrest and lower myself down, right? It can have a lot more control using something like that going to the bathroom. It's also a lot less effort to get up. And sometimes reducing falls can also be about conserving energy and using your energy where you need it the most. So say you have a bedside commode and you don't want to get one of these two. You can use the bedside commode kind of multi-purpose. Okay. So the bedside commode will go right over the top of a standard toilet. An important thing to note is that every bedside commode comes with what's called a splash guard. This is really important if you're using it over the top of the commode because it prevents you from, making a mess out the front of the commode. So splash guard here. Again, it's height adjustable. It has armrest. It can really make things a lot safer when you're using the restroom. All right. So lots of options for you when it comes to using the commode. You might have to try one or two to see what works best for you. We're gonna sort of roll over here to my bathroom. And if I had to guess, my bathroom setup looks a lot like many of yours. I have a tub shower combination here, meaning that in order to get into the shower, I have to step over a pretty big lip to get into the shower part. The first thing I want to talk to you about are shower rugs. All right, these are super aesthetically pleasing. They're not great when it comes to reducing falls. So yes, they soak up water, but they also slip and slide all over the floor. So there's a couple reasons why I don't really recommend this particular type. And you can see what I've got. It's just like a regular rug. So one, it's the same exact color as my tile floor, which y'all can't see, but it's just a super stylish kind of gray situation we got going on. So it's the same color. So not a lot of contrast. And two, it slips and slides all over the floor. So if I'm getting out of the tub and I step on this, it's going to slide, it's going to bunch up. It's just not a great idea. But I don't like water on my floor either. So let me give you a little bit better option. And it's this one. Oddly enough, both of those were about the same price at Walmart, maybe about $1 difference. So not that big of a deal. But this one has a non-skid back. See the difference? It's a lot more sturdy. It's a lot more substantial, and it has this non-skid surface that keeps it from moving. It's also this beautiful bright turquoise color, which gives us an element of contrast in the bathroom. One thing that happens as we all age is we get some contrast sensitivity issues. And what that means is we're going to do better when things are opposite colors. So like a dark matte on a light floor or a light matte on a dark floor will make it easier for you to see what's going on. All right, I'm going to roll over here so I can show you the shower situation. So this is a tub transfer bench. And the reason it's called that is because you can use this bench to transfer in and out of the tub without having to sort of stand on one leg. Or I call it like standing like a flamingo. Like you can sit and slide in. I'm going to show you how it works. All right. So you just sort of, there we go. You just sit on the edge. So both of my feet are still on the ground outside of the shower. I put my booty on the seat and I just slide in, lift my legs up. And at no point during this transfer did I have to stand on just one leg. It's super important getting in, but it is really important getting out when everything is wet and soapy. So to get out, I just do the opposite. I slide, lift, slide, lift, and then if I had a walker or an assistive device, I would have it right here and I could stand and go about my business. And it would be a very safe way to transfer in and out of the tub. I'll show you an alternative in a second for those of you who think that that's just a terrible idea and you would never put that in your shower. But I think it's a great recommendation. All right, this is a bath mat. So our first reaction is to put a bath mat in the bottom of the tub to prevent falls. I mean, it says on here, like slip resistant, textured for secure footing. So it's marketed to reduce falls in the shower. But what happens to these after a couple showers? They get kind of slimy, right? They get slimy. There'll be some shampoo residue up under there, some soap, some water from your last shower. It gets a little funky and it can actually place you at a higher risk for falls if it's not maintained properly. So there's an alternative that I found this morning at Walmart for $4.97. And these are bathtub and shower tread stickers. And these stick to the bottom of your shower. You kind of put them in a little pattern so that you cover the bottom well. And they stick to the bottom and they give you some texture without the fall risk. So these are super cool. They come in all different shapes. I know Lowe's has like seashells. So another option is this Safety Walk tape by 3M. And this you can put anywhere, not just in the shower, but you just cut it to size and you would line your shower bottom in strips to give you a little bit of texture. And it's not going to get the residue like a bath mat would. This is also good on stairs inside your house and outside of your house. Outside of the house, they make like reflective ones. So 3M makes some pretty cool products and they're easy to find. Right. The next thing I wanted to show you was this LED bath light. And I have spent 15 years going in and out of people's houses, and I'm always surprised at there's not always a lot of good lighting in your bathroom. And so you don't want to be wet, naked, and soapy and kind of in the dark. So this is a good option. It was like $6. It sticks on the side of the shower and it can just illuminate the surface a little bit better so that you can really see what you're doing. Another recommendation is, and one thing people always tell me is, if you put that big bench in my shower, then I can't reach my shampoo. And maybe there's not storage at the front of the shower. So where do you put your shampoo? The last thing you want is to be twisting and turning and reaching. So this is something you can get really easily, and you use command strips and it fits on the side of your shower or on the side of your tub. And I would place this where you can reach it easily without bending, squatting, or stooping. And you would put the things you use most often in this particular container. All right, I'm going to swap out my bench real quick. So I swapped out my bench for something a little bit smaller, and this is just a shower chair. There's like 7,000 varieties of this, but they're all essentially the same. If you buy a shower chair, the main thing to remember is that it needs to be height adjustable and it needs to have a back. So the back just makes it a lot safer, and the height adjustable makes it where it's easier to transfer. There can be a lot of different reasons why a shower chair might be beneficial for you. One could be that maybe you just get really tired taking a shower. If you've got some respiratory issues, then heat and steam and hot water can sometimes really exhaust you. And it's good to have a place to sit if you needed it to take a break. If you've had orthopedic issues and your balance isn't great, sitting down, especially when you're doing things like washing your hair, with your eyes closed, sitting down is just a lot safer way to do that to reduce falls. And this is a pretty inexpensive purchase, like $35, $45 at Amazon, on Amazon or at Walmart. The next thing that we're going to talk about are grab bars. You've probably seen these. There's some like controversy about these sort of in the therapy world. I'll tell you, it's not my favorite. So this is not ever my go-to. This is a suction cup grab bar. So you suction it. It's not ever like the #1 recommendation, but there's some showers where it works pretty well. And that's if you have like a solid fiberglass shower unit and it's very smooth and you can get a good suction. I also recommend this for like steadying assistance. This is not to pull up from. So if you have to pull really hard to stand or push really hard when you're transferring, this is not going to be a safe option for you because it can migrate, places you at an increased risk for falls. Also, every time before you go to use it to steady yourself, I would give it a little wiggle and a little shake and make sure it was still fixed. So not a terrible option, not my favorite recommendation for grab bars. Obviously, the best thing to do is to have a grab bar, like a metal or stainless steel grab bar, put into your walls so that you can really transfer and use it appropriately. So these are pretty easy to find. You know, the length doesn't matter so much, and I wouldn't even lose a lot of sleep on the position. It's whatever makes sense to you. Some people pull really hard when they transfer. Some people prefer to push. So think about how you would use the grab bar and then place it appropriately. You can always ask your doctor, or if you have a therapist that you trust and talk to, for recommendations on where to place your grab bar. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention is the long-handled sponge. So this is good to wash your feet so that you don't have to bend over too far. It's also good to help you wash your back. So inexpensive sort of thing. Another type of grab bar is this. Kind of hard to fit to the screen. But what this does is it fixes on the side of the tub. So I can put it here and it screws on and locks. And then I can use this as I transfer in and out of the tub. I can also use it while I'm standing while I'm in the tub. So another option, if you're unable to, like you say, you rent your place or you've got a lot of tile you don't want to drill into, there's options out there. You just got to look for them and ask, right? I'm gonna breathe a minute. I always talk fast when I'm nervous. All right,
We did
we're
have
gonna
a couple
go.
of questions come in about the
Sure,
bathroom in particularly, if that's okay.
perfect.
When you have the shower bench in the shower, how do you manage the water flow from the shower from getting on the floor? And also, how do you juggle the shower curtain with the bench in there? And everyone really appreciates your recommendations. They love your energy, and please take as many breathers as you need. You're getting a workout.
No, I talk fast when I'm nervous. Okay, so I always get that question with the tub transfer bench, and there's a pretty easy solution. Let me see if I can show it to you. Now, my bench isn't in the tub, but I think you'll still get the gist. Every single tub transfer bench that I've ever seen, you see how it has these slits and these holes. Well, that's to drain water. Well, obviously, you don't want water on your bathroom floor, and this part is going to be sticking out. So one thing I recommend that's pretty inexpensive is just to get a cheap shower curtain from the dollar store and cut a slit in it. So I would cut about a 12-inch slit and I drop it right in between here. Does that make sense? You can cut it and tuck it and then put it inside the tub and it prevents the water from running out. Another option is to make sure you roll up a towel. I'm gonna have to put it in there to show you. Is to roll up a towel and fill that gap. Put an extra shower curtain on your shower hooks and trim it. I mean, you can buy them super cheap and just drop it down right here and tuck it down. That works really well. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect solution, but it's better than like it raining outside of your floor. And also to roll up a towel and fill this gap right here can be another simple solution. I always tell people, you know, steer the water away from that side, and a little water on the floor that you can clean up is better than tripping and falling or hurting yourself in the shower. Those are just some inexpensive sort of tricks of the trade. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Okay. All right. The bathroom is my favorite place to talk about, but because that's where a lot of people fall. All right. So the next place we're going to talk about is sort of the bedroom. And so I have a little twin bed here. And one thing a lot of us do in the bedroom is get dressed in the morning. And so I'm going to show you some of the equipment that we recommend people use when they're getting dressed. And you're probably like, how does that link to fall prevention? Well, I talked earlier about conserving your energy and using it for what's most important to you. So we're most likely to fall when we're tired or fatigued, or so if I can save a little energy while I'm getting dressed, then it can be a good use of my time and resources. So I'm going to show you some gadgets. I bet you've seen a lot of these before. This is a reacher. So it's pretty simple. You squeeze, it pinches. There's a lot of different types of these, but this is probably the most common. And I tell people this makes your arm longer. So instead of squatting down and picking up that piece of paper off the floor or picking up your cell phone when you drop it, use the reacher because it makes it a lot safer for you to get things. You can also use it when you're getting dressed. There's a lot of different reasons why people have trouble sort of getting dressed, especially their pants. All right, one can be, oh, you know, I got arthritis in my hip and I can't get my feet up. One can be, I just got a new hip, I'm not allowed to bend over. Another option might be that I carry my weight in my abdomen and I physically can't bend over. Or it could be that I have breathing issues, and when I bend over a long time, I'll hold my breath and then I come up and I'm dizzy. So if you relate to any of those, one thing you can do is use the reacher to make your arm longer. So I just grabbed the pants. See if I can show. Grab the pants, made my arm longer. I'm able to stay sitting upright and sort of feed my legs through. All right, and I would do the same thing with the other leg hole. I'll tell you that takes a little bit of practice. I've done it a lot to kind of coordinate the movements. But once you get it, it really can just alleviate a lot of energy exertion or stress when you're getting dressed. And you also don't have to ask anybody else for help if you don't want to. All right. The next thing I'm going to show you, and it relates to sort of if you have trouble bending, and that's a sock aid. There's a lot of different versions of these. This is kind of the most standard one. All right, so I have my Power C UTC socks, and I want to wear socks because I'm going to exercise today. So I take the sock. I was just doing it and forgetting to show you what I was doing. And I put it on this hard plastic thing and I sponge it down. Scrunch, scrunch, scrunch until it's tight in the toe. Okay, so it'll be tight in the toe, bunched up here. All right, let me show you my feet. Nope. I'll move my foot up. All right, and you drop it down and you just pull and your sock goes on, okay? So it just makes things like super easy to get dressed. All right. I also have a long-handled shoehorn. This makes it easier to slide my shoes on and off. And again, we're just avoiding that bending over and holding our breath. We're trying not to put ourselves in extreme pain, and we're saving our energy for the things that are more important so that we can reduce our fall risk. Another thing I recommend everyone have in their home are night lights. All right, these are LED motion activated lights that I bought at Walmart this morning for $10. So these are pucks. You can stick them wherever you want, and your path between your side of the bed and your bathroom needs to be illuminated at night. A lot of people don't want a nightlight on all night because it keeps them up. So the motion activated sensors can be a good solution to help you sort of find where you're going at night. And it needs to be bright enough that you can see. Again, these are the times when people fall, when they're racing to get to the bathroom in the middle of the night, or if they trip over something that they normally could see, but they couldn't see for one reason or another. So night lights are wonderful, wonderful, and I love motion activated ones. All right, I'm about to take you to the last room of our little house here. And I wonder if it looks like any of your living rooms. Okay. So what I see here is, you can't see my papers on the floor. I got some papers on the floor. I've got a rug right here, right? And it wiggles all around. I've got my lunch over there and my coffee cup. So this to me is like a fall nightmare. There's stuff all over the floor. And you know what? You might be able to get around this 9 times out of 10, no problem. But it's that one time when somebody rings the doorbell and you jump up and run to the doorbell, or your phone rings and you're trying to get to it, or you drank too much coffee and you're racing to the bathroom. It's that one time that really places you at an increased risk for falls. So I try to teach people to establish habits that make them safe. So, you know, I like to read too, especially on my couch at night. But when I'm done, we need to put it into a safe place. So leaving clutter on the floor is really just not a good idea. So if you like to have your paper right beside your favorite chair, that's great, but put it in a little basket every day so that you know where it is and so that you can reach it and it's not creating a fall risk. Same thing for sort of your food and your coffee cup. Just make sure it's clean. Again, over here, I have just a little bit simpler version of a nightlight. These just come on automatically when it gets dark. So you might want to keep these in places where you're not sleeping, by the front door, in the kitchen. That way it's well lit when you're trying to get around. And the last thing I want to talk to you about rugs. Well, I love to have rugs in my own home. They are beautiful. That one's super cute. And I have a hard time telling people to pull up every single rug in their home. But that is the safest option. Rugs wiggle, they move, the corners kind of tip up. So the safest option is to just kind of get rid of the rugs, get rid of anything that's going to be a trip hazard. If you are just not going to take up your rug, then let's find a way for you to safely, let's meet in the middle, right? Like, let's find a way for the rug to be a safer part of your home. There's a couple different things you can do. This is some rug gripper tape. So this is different than like the rug mat that goes under the rug. This is gripper tape, and it goes around the edges and you can really hold it steady. The goal is to have something that doesn't move, doesn't curl, doesn't give you a kind of a trip hazard. So this rug gripper tape, or even taking clear packing tape and taping around the outside of your big oriental rugs to reduce fall risk, can also be another option. I see there's a hand up, but those are sort of my quick and dirty tips for the equipment that you can purchase to make your home safer and reduce your fall risk. 60% of falls happen in our own homes. And so if we can make our home safer, then we can really reduce a lot of falls. My disclaimer is that you should always, when possible, have an occupational therapist come and evaluate your home environment. And if you need help connecting with those resources or gaining access to them, I'll put up my information afterwards and can try to connect you to the right people. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, Eileen, your hand is up. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
What about if you have wall-to-wall carpets? Do you say no to that?
No, I think a lot of people have wall-to-wall carpet as long as it's tight. You know how sometimes over time carpet will like bump? So the bumpy carpet can be a risk, but if you have wall-to-wall carpet, then that's okay. That's what you're used to. It's pretty easy to walk on. It's just mainly the rugs that cause a change in height and also are known to sort of shift and move and wiggle and peel up.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Erin, I have a question. I don't know if it might not be an easy one, so I apologize. I know you talked a lot in the bathroom about ways to help people, maintain their balance and have a little bit of a height adjustment. What about when people are out and about in the community? Is it just kind of hopefully that handicap stall is open, or are there any kind of tips and tricks maybe out in public you could recommend?
Well, that's a really good question. The handicap stall is almost always going to be a little bit taller commode. And so that's always a good option if you're at a place with a handicap stall. I know I went to a bathroom recently at a little mom and pop sort of restaurant, and the commode was teeny. There's no way I could have fit my walker in there. And so in those situations, I really recommend that you just take your time and move slow. So if you're having a hard time getting up, you scoot to the edge of the commode and sort of lean forward to get your momentum and push up from your knees. And the main thing is just to be really kind of slow and aware of your surroundings when it's not ideal.
We have a watch party that says they have a couple questions. So the first one is, where can you get that sock device? That was really neat.
Oh, the sock device, you can buy those on Amazon, or if you have health insurance plan that sends you like a catalog of equipment. They're in there. They have them at a lot of the medical equipment supply companies. Locally in Chattanooga, it would be like Access Drugs or someplace like that. But they're very easy to find online or on Amazon. It's called a sock aid.
Another question is, what are your thoughts on stand-up walker, one that stands a little taller?
I have a couple patients recently, so I feel like those are growing in popularity and they can really be very beneficial. I have a couple patients right now that are using them and having really great results. So the stand-up walker is good if you're kind of have long places to walk, like if you're if you know, like more than 2 or 3 feet. They're harder sometimes to turn and negotiate in smaller environments. But if you have a pretty open space, then a stand-up walker can be a really good option for you.
That's all the questions that we had in the chat box. So if anyone else has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask your question verbally if you don't have access to the chat box. Oh, another question came in. Can you demonstrate or discuss transferring in and out of an automobile or assisting someone to do so?
Oh, well, yes, I can't. I don't think I can make it to my car. So we'll pretend that the bed is the automobile. All right, so if this were a car, I'll tell you that the kind of car that you're transferring someone into can really matter. So if I'm transferring someone down into a little tiny coupe, it can be a little bit more difficult than if I'm transferring them into like a mid-size SUV. So when possible, you kind of want to back up to your space and put your bottom in first, or turn sideways and sit down and then swing your legs into the car. What people want to do is get into the car like they've always gotten into the car, which is like all the movements at one. So it's like a step and a scoot. And sometimes combining those movements can just be a little unsafe. Remember, we want to avoid being flamingos. So we don't want to be standing on one foot if you don't have to. So anytime you can maintain both feet on the ground and support of at least one arm, you're going to be safer. So getting into a car, I recommend you kind of sit, back up and ease yourself down and then swing your feet in. One thing that can help in a car, so, you know, a lot of people get stuck in that transition, like they can't swing in, is putting a grocery bag underneath their booty. And that makes it just a little slicker so you can help people sort of transition into the car that way. Speeds it up a little. I hope that helped without me having a car.
When someone is helping someone else into the car, like, is there a particular area of the body you want to make sure that you help guide, or places you don't like, you don't want to hold on to their wrists and be like, all right, we're going to lower you, or maybe that is what you do. I don't know.
Well, I don't ever really like to grab people if we don't have to grab people. Someone's always going to do better if they have a lot more control over their own body. But I definitely don't like people being grabbed by the armpits. I don't like them grabbing you, right? Because if they're grabbing you around the neck and you're transferring them and they lose their balance, you're both going down. So I try to cue people to hold on where they have support. So maybe it might be easier for me to hold the door open and steady so that they have something really firm to grab onto, as opposed to me sort of manhandling someone. But if I were going to have to support them physically, I would try to grab like trunk and lower, or just mainly make sure they're in position to help themselves if possible. Some of that can get kind of complex because it's a whole different ball game if you've got somebody that's had a stroke, or some of that is really person specific.
Selma, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Shelbyville.
We're just rejoining.
I have.
Welcome back. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Stacy.
Yes. So, how would you recommend? My son is a fireman, and he gets calls where he has to pick up individuals. How would you recommend if someone is in the home, if you happen to lift a heavy person or a victim of a stroke or something? What recommendations can you give to the person who's doing the heavy lifting? You know, if it's
Oh, I could barely hear you, but I think I got that your son is a fireman and that he has to help people up a lot. Oddly enough, I have a meeting next week in Chattanooga, and we're going to be working on sort of some efforts because the firemen get a lot of calls to pick people up. So, there's a lot of different ways to do that. I try to get someone where, well, this is hard to demo without. So I try to get someone sort of on their bottom and with their feet underneath them. And it might be from that position, I can sort of help guide them up, or I'll get them close to something where they can push themselves up. Another option is to have them sort of get on their knees and turn around and lift. All of that can get really patient specific, but my recommendation is always, if someone falls and you don't feel safe getting them up, don't get them up by yourself. Wait for help. As much as we try to avoid calling the fire department for non-emergencies, we want to use people who have like where you can have two people at once if you need to. I'm going to be working on some training for firemen. If you want to email me after this, I will be happy to sort of provide that to your son and wherever he works as well. That might be easier.
Great. Thelma, you have your hand up. We also have a couple questions in the chat box that I promise we're going to get to, but Thelma, go ahead with your question.
Okay, it's John, actually. I'm under the same registration, basically. One of the things in the bathroom, I have grab bars and I have a mat, and I've at times used the chair also. But the actual stall itself is an aid, because if you look at stability, 3 points is better than 2. If you have to use both your hands, like in shampooing your hair or something like that, it's best, I find, for me to lean up against the wall of the stall and plant my feet. So I've got 3 points of contact, which is a lot more stable. So think of the wall of the stall itself as an aid.
I've seen people use that technique. If you're in a position where you're having to lean and you needed that much stability, my first reaction would be to tell you that seated might be the safest position, because leaning is going to sort of, you know, your body better than anyone else, but leaning is going to, for some people, might be hard to recover from or come back to center from. But that's a good recommendation.
We had a question come in. What are your, wrong one. Someone asked, how to prevent falls with quick turns?
So, quick, mainly is you don't turn quickly. And that sounds really like a non-answer, right? But when possible, we want to maintain control of our body. So without going into a long spiel about your vestibular system, I can tell you that your eyes and your body and your ears, it's all connected. So if we can kind of keep it all in the same movement, then you're going to be better. So rather than whipping around and turning quickly, just take your time and make smaller incremental turns. Especially if you're using some sort of assistive device, you want to keep it on the ground at all times. If you're picking up your walker and whipping it around, then you need to slow down your turn and be a little bit more deliberate with your actions.
What are your thoughts on a bar that you can buy to slip into your car door?
Oh, I've seen some of those. Those are super cool. I don't have one with me. There are some that go into like the locking mechanism on your car, like your car door is like this, it would be on this end, and that can be a really good way to help push up and down. So I think that can be a great resource.
Oops, sorry, I'm just chatting away on mute.
That's okay. I see some of it pop up, but I don't ever get a whole sentence. So
yeah, are you okay if I share your email address in the chat box to everyone?
oh, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. There's that. And then what are your thoughts on gait belts to maybe help with stability for individuals?
I think gait belts can be a great resource. Again, that's going to be like sort of individual specific. When I'm working with someone and I'm training caregivers, a lot of times I will recommend a gait belt If someone has balance deficits and they're not able to maintain an upright posture, or if they need a lot of physical assistance going from seated to standing or standing to sitting, the gait belt can be a way to sort of slow someone's momentum and have control over their body, but also give them free use of their arms and legs. So gait belts can be a great resource. Again, like, not to use that as a cop-out answer, but just sort of a specific on the person.
For sure. A couple comments came in. There are swivel seats you can get to use in the car and car canes that have been very helpful for people that this particular person knows. And also a MyRide program uses the car canes to help their clients get in and out of cars as well.
That's awesome. You know, I tend to be like low budget, so a trash bag or grocery bag sometimes helps mimic that sort of swivel. But if you have the resources to buy a swivel seat, that's wonderful.
Those are all the questions that have come into the chat box. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself. And this has been a really great discussion. So many simple like suggestions, just like with the plastic bag you were talking about. I never would have thought, yeah, it's definitely slick.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time and your attention and your great questions. And if you have any other questions, you're welcome to email me. And I'll be happy to answer or try to refer you to someone closer to you. And if anybody's at the senior center in Cleveland, you need to say hi to my papa. He's there every day.
Nice. Karen, you have your hand up. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Actually, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. This makes my OT heart so proud. So you have done a great job. Thank you for what you're doing by showing the importance of occupational therapy and helping keep people safe and doing the things that they love to do. So I just want to say thank you for doing this presentation.
Well, thank you very much for your comment.
We're getting a lot of thanks and praise in the chat box. So what I'll do, thank you all so much again for being with us for this session. Erin, thank you so much for all of your valuable resources and information. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then we can maybe hang out for a few more minutes in case people have questions that they don't want recorded. So hopefully you all can join us for our last segment tomorrow, talking about the Emergency Management Services perspective on older adult falls. So thank you all so much again, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.